Hello, welcome back to another review, and wow, I haven't said that in at least a few months at this point. But anyways, today we're taking a look at the Marvel Legends Deluxe No Way Home Green Goblin. So yeah, after another really long hiatus, we're back and we're going to be looking at this goober. And in case you're wondering how I got it this early, pre-orders, specifically from GameStop. So if you pre-order it from there, then maybe you'll get it soon. So finally, we're getting like accurate No Way Home figures, aside from the Tom Holland, Peter Parker, and J. Jonah Jameson and Doctor Strange we got in the original wave. But finally, we're getting the rest of the Spider-Man and the villains. Except, of course, this is the only one that's arrived for me so far, and it looks amazing. Funnily enough, I saw a few days ago was I think like the 1 or 2 year anniversary of when we first got the trailer for No Way Home. So it's kind of fitting that this is releasing now. So good way to start it off with Goblin, who was kind of like the first big theatrical live action Spider-Man villain. And this is, of course, of the No Way Home design. And they did a really, really good job capturing this. You see, they were able to sculpt like all the details from like the actual fabric here, which gives him like a bit more of like a comic booky look. They got like his missiles on his arms, whatever that stuff is. I'm guessing they're ammo magazines. I don't know. You get some more tears on the back, some more missiles. Here are the blades, which sadly I don't think are removable, but I don't remember if he ever had them like retracted just in the movie. But I guess it's a little bit of a nice feature. But I think everyone's just going to be using them either way. We have that. Some more nice detailing below. So you can see this is basically the original Green Goblin suit underneath, but with like some new armor like attached to it and some armor missing. And a neat little kind of detail I noticed with this figure is that a lot of the purple you'll see on this guy, like for example on the foot here, that's actually the suit underneath. So essentially he's wearing like I guess like a purple jumpsuit or something, and then this green armor around it. And it's a neat little detail to show kind of the battle damage on this, because this was of course like basically him transferred from right before he died. So it'll make sense his suit would have been really beat up. We have more of these again. I'm not sure if they're like ammo packs or if these are batteries for his glider or something, but we have some more on here. A nice little bag, although I'm not the biggest fan of this because it gets in the way. You can never really have both of his arms sitting flush. They did make an attempt to fix it by having that little kind of like indent in there for the arm to slide into, but it still doesn't work perfectly. But I still think they did a decent job. And then the head sculpt is just amazing. I was taking some photos of this guy earlier, some of which may be used in the thumbnail, and my phone actually recognized his face sculpt as an actual face because it really does look like him. If we want to get a better look, we can just pop it off. Thankfully, it is easy to take off on this. The issue sometimes with Marvel Legends is like their alternate heads are just way too tight on the ball joint, but here it's toleranced very nicely. So if you take it off, you can remove the hood, you can remove his goggles here, and we'll just pop it back on, and you can see that is an amazing head sculpt. It just looks like Willem Dafoe. He's got like a really evil like face sculpt as well, and it thankfully looks better than the SH figure arts, which looks terrible. As for some comparisons here, I have the original Green Goblin figure they did for the first movie. We can kind of compare their head sculpts here. Now, I already thought that the original head sculpt was impressive, especially for the time, but just seeing it next to the new one is just like night and day. You can really see like how far action figure technology has come. Like, sure, this guy has like moving hands, whoa, but it's just nothing compared to like the modern Marvel Legends we get now. Another thing you can see comparing these two is how like short the original figure was. But you can really see the detail now. Most of it is like covered up by like armored, or on this guy, most of it is covered up by like new armored plates or just missing armor plates. But it's cool to see, like what the suit used to look like and what it looks like now. We go to back once again. You can see there's just a lot more detail on the MCU version, which I know comic book purists seem to hate, and I don't care. It looks cooler than a guy in a onesie. You're telling me that you'd prefer this, huh? This? Really? Okay, maybe that was a bad point because Migo Riddler here is precious. But you get what I'm saying, right? Like, high-tech suit of armor looks cooler than like a one-piece villain. As for the accessories on this guy, surprisingly for the $70 or $77 price point, which is like a Transformers Leader price point, you don't get a lot of stuff. It's just a few things and then one big accessory. So we'll start with the smaller things. First, some stuff you've already seen. We have his goggles here. The camera wants to actually focus. Let's see. Please. There we go. We have his goggles. They're sculpted pretty nicely, pretty basic. You can see there's some purple paint for lenses, which doesn't show up the greatest on the camera. But these, you can just pop onto his head. Although, unlike Firefly here, where you can kind of just slide them over his head, you actually have to take your Green Goblin and just decapitate him again, which you're going to be seeing a lot in this video. And then you can just put these on. A technique I had, you basically put it over his eyes first, and then you can kind of stretch it over the back of his head. And that actually holds it on like pretty securely. And you can see now he looks even more goofy. So one option is just having him just with the normal head, which is what I usually do. The other option is having him with the goggles here. And to add on to it to make him even more accurate to the film, you get a hood, which is also sculpted very nicely and makes him more comic booky. So you can take the head and you kind of just like pop it into there. His chin kind of lines up with the hole on the bottom. And then this you can attach on as well. And that's what you saw at the beginning of the video, and I think in the thumbnail, I do not remember. But that looks very, very nice as well. And if you want, you can also just have him with the hood and no glasses, or you can have him with the glasses, or the goggles, sorry, folded up like that, which I think is actually a really nice look, and I may start doing that, but I'm not sure. But if you thought those were all the options we were going to get with this figure, then you are sorely mistaken, because we also get the Goblin helmet, which is a very, very nice addition. You can see it's sculpted pretty nicely, although it doesn't really show up on the camera too well, but I feel like they made the eyes a bit too round and tall. Maybe it's because I'm used to the original toy helmet here. You can kind of see on here they look like lenses on a helmet. Here they actually look like eyes, and I don't remember which is more accurate or not. It's been a while since I've seen the first Spider-Man or No Way Home, but I think both work pretty well. I do prefer this, but this still looks nice. Yes, this is sculpted very nicely, and if you recall, he never actually wore this in the movie, at least with this outfit. I think at the beginning we see him gliding around in his original suit with it, but then after that there's a whole alley thing, he gets destroyed, so we never see him wear it with, his updated No Way Home design. So this is just a really nice thing for Hasbro to throw in, and for the people who like to have it, because it does give you like a more classic Green Goblin look. Although, what should I have with it? Remember I was saying it was nice that his normal head was easy to take on and pop off? Yeah, you're not going to get that with this. I mean, taking it off is easy, and that's because I have not actually attached it to the figure properly. I can get it to rest on there, but I can never actually get it to properly sit on the ball joint, because it just falls off like that, because it's just such a tight fit. If I used a blow dryer, I could probably get it on, but I don't feel like doing that, because I don't use this a lot. But as you can see, if I can get his arm to go down, the figure also looks amazing with this, and it's really cool to see the original Green Goblin design, but just with a bit more color, so it's not just all green with a tiny, tiny bit of gold. You actually get a lot more nice detail here with like the purple and little bits of like bronze. Or I guess that's still gold, but it's more gold. And of course, you can just pose him carrying the helmet. And next up with our accessories, we're almost done. We get the smallest of all of them, but it's a very nice inclusion. Pumpkin Bomb, which you cannot see. Wow. There it is. So, which is a tiny little piece of orange plastic. You get a bit of sculpting on it, and like a little dab of green paint for the button. And this is very nice to get, because I'm not sure if there was ever a release of the original that came with it. And it's such like an iconic weapon for Goblin. It's just really nice to have. Overall, it kind of feels like Hasbro's just trying to make the definitive Green Goblin figure, and they most certainly succeeded. The way you get him to hold it is pretty easy. You kind of just like pop it into his hand here. Although, I'm not going to fully put it in there. I'll just kind of show you. Is that. Because when you fully put it in there, it is very tricky to get out. And I don't really feel like putting up with that right now, because my fingers hurt from trying to put on this thing. So I'm kind of just going to leave it off to the side and just show you that, yeah, he does have a pumpkin bomb. He can hold it, and it is very awesome. Now, we do have one more accessory, and yes, it's the one you're all thinking about, but because I'm a jerk, we're going to look at articulation before we do that, just so people actually stay to watch my boring video. So, first of all, at the neck, we have the new style double ball joint instead of a ball joint hinge. This is way better, personally. So you can get that much up, that much down, side to side, and then at the shoulders, you just get a standard joint, and it can actually go up that much, which is more than usual, although this one is nice and smooth. This shoulder kind of clicks, which is a bit odd. And then double joint elbow bend. One thing I noticed is that the elbow is like the joint. It looks very like thin and very like long, which is something I've been noticing they're starting to do with Marvel Legends now. I know Captain Marvel from the Marvels did that too, and that's kind of the newest Marvel Legends figure one aside from this guy. But we end up getting a very nice full bend with it. Although sadly, it does use pinless joints, and if you're wondering why I said sadly, it's because I do not like them. Sure, they do look nicer than having the pins, but almost all the time, they end up being insanely tight to the point where you just cannot bend the joint, like Firefly, who I showed off earlier. He has this issue. I can bend it here, but it's really not fun. That's probably a bad example because that elbow joint is nice, but here, this. That feels like I'm going to break it, and I didn't even bend it. And I don't really like having that on my action figures. I prefer if, like, the joint's, like, a little uglier, even though you're not going to look at it from the side. I prefer if we had that over joints that feel like they're just going to break. But thankfully, Goblin here seems to have actually escaped most of those issues because his elbows, for the most part, are fine. They're definitely tighter. And then his knees we'll get to later. And as for the rest of the articulation, his wrists, you get inwards, outwards movement. Oh, and also, yes, these are the only hands you get, but there's not much else you could have really wanted besides maybe a fist for here as well. But then the rotation I don't like because I think there's some kind of flashing in there because you move it and, oh, it springs back. It is not fun. You can move it like that, but it feels like I'm actually twisting the plastic peg and not the joint. And I can't even get it to stay on this hand, so I'm just not going to bother with that because it's scary. Oh, and we also get a bicep swivel, in case I didn't mention that earlier. And then his torso is one of those ball joints, although sadly, because of the strap here, you don't get a lot of movement, and most kind of just springs back. But you can still get, like, a decent amount. And then, yes, of course, this is a separate bag belt thing, in case I didn't show it off earlier. The hip joints are kind of cool. So this part I don't really like. They kind of click into place. So it's that, and that. But he has a drop-down hips. So it's nice to see, like, G.I. Joe classified technology slowly trickling down into other Hasbro 6-inch lines, because G.I. Joe classified is probably their best 6-inch line. Don't get mad at me. But it's just nice to see that on other figures. It's also just good to see that Marvel Legends is improving, unlike Star Wars Black Series, which I think I heard was like removing double joints or something. So thankful I'm not a Star Wars fan. But anyways, we also get outwards movement here, and then with the drop-down hips, you can get that much, which is very nice. Although it's kicking out to the side, but if you just use thigh swivel, you can get that. And then, yeah, so thigh swivel, and then the knee bend. So that is the one thing on here. One of his knee joints was kind of frozen out of the box. I had to basically crack it, which sometimes works with these pinless figures, sometimes doesn't. Thankfully it worked here, but that's still really tight, and I don't like bending that knee. His other one, if I can recall, got off fine. Let's see. Yeah, his other knee joint's fine. You can see you get that much for the bend, and thankfully, I think I really won with the QC on this guy, because thankfully his ankles are fine, because I cannot tell you how many Marvel Legends I've bought lately. I bought a lot, and it's happened almost all of them, where the ankle joint just doesn't want to work. Like, right here, my little display shelf, if he doesn't fall over, Mr. Negative. I actually bought this guy a little while ago, but his ankles, okay, no, those are fine. Yeah, this one, that just doesn't want to move at all. You can get a little wiggle, but it doesn't move, and that's like a very thin peg in there that feels like it's going to snap, and if that snaps, that's a pretty crucial joint, because that's his foot. And that affects almost every Marvel Legends figure I own, which is why I don't tend to use ankle articulation. So I'm very thankful that Goblin here actually, like, you know, kind of won the QC lottery with this, because both of them move fine. He can get that much forward, that much back, and he needs this too for his glider, which we will get to soon. And then finally we have our ankle tilt. So overall, he has pretty decent articulation. It's limited in some areas, but really good in others. I think the main reason that I think his articulation is better than so many figures I've gotten this year is that he actually has like good tolerances all around, because they somehow managed to make pinless joints not terrible, and somehow managed to make the ankle joints not terrible. So good on you, Hasbro. Except for, of course, his wrists. Those still kind of suck. But now finally, I know you're all yelling at me. This is what you've been waiting for. His last accessory. Well, kind of also stand, but here it is. The Goblin glider. And it is very awesome. This is my first one I got because this guy right here, the Toy Biz one, I bought secondhand, so he did not come with the glider. So this is my first actual Goblin glider I've gotten, and it's pretty cool. It is definitely, like, it's a Goblin glider. Right, so it's basically just a big old piece of plastic. You get the nice, I need to throw that guy. We get the nice, like, kind of sharp bits here, which you can use to, stab him. In case you want to recreate that horrifying death scene. And then what else? You get some very nice sculpting on here, and you even get the little bits of texture on these purple painted bits, which I think looks very, very nice. These get his little foot pieces. I will talk about my issues with those later. And then, alright, see, one issue I have here, these kind of ratchet joints are very wobbly, although it's not too bad for posing. And then we get the nice thrusters at the back, which get a little bit of green paint. And then we actually get a vent at the front, which has some more green paint hidden in it, which you can't really see on the camera, but just know it is there. And it's a very nice detail. Then some more green inside of there, which of course you cannot see either. But again, it is there, and it does look very cool. There's a lot more detail underneath. I love, like, the piston detailing here. You get, like, the missiles, which is, like, really cool. Makes it feel like an actual military aircraft. And overall, there's just a ton of really nice details and greebles on here that just make it feel that much more real. And I do think that's very nice. And then as for articulation, you get a joint here and a joint here for repositioning, like, these two components on it. And these are ratchet joints, and they're very tight. This one is fine. These other ones, for the most part, are just perfectly normal. These inner joints, though, are very tight, and again, it kind of feels like I'm going to break it. So I'm not going to touch those. I'm just going to leave that there, but just take my word. They move. And then I feel like it rotates here as well on this joint, but it's really tight, and I am too scared to try to move it. But I'm pretty sure it does have that. As for the rest of the articulation, these foot bits rotate like that. And side to side, so you can get them in all your gliding poses, and also, yeah, they do that. They kind of fall off. And then our actual last accessory is a stand, which is actually a very cool addition because it means you can actually display him gliding on the glider. And the way it's designed is very clever. So you'll notice there are 3 ball joints on here. So you get 3 different heights. You can have the tallest one here, and if you simply rotate it like that, you can get a shorter one, and then one where it's essentially just slightly hovering above the ground. But I think that just is, like, a very, like, intelligent design. Like, there aren't any moving parts in it or anything. You can just kind of reposition it, and you get 3 different settings for the glider. I personally like to use this one the most, because this feels a little bit like, is it going to clear plastic? Is it going to snap? Is it going to not? This is too close to the ground, so at that point, might as well just, like, chuck it on the table. So I think this is kind of, like, the perfect height for me. And again, it's just a very nice, like, cleverly designed little stand. That does help. And it attaches via ball joint, so you do get some articulation on it. It's just another ball joint that I'm not sure if, well, I mean, I'm, like, not strong at all, but I'm not sure if it's fully attached in there, because whenever I move it too much, it just does that. So, again, it's not the greatest, or I'm just extremely weak. It's probably both of those things, or just the latter. But either way, make note of that, I guess. And now, probably my biggest issue with the figure, attaching him onto the glider. This just straight up sucks. You're meant to, like, slide his foot under here, and tab it into the back of the foot, but the tab is a very tight tolerance, which makes sense because it has to hold up the entire figure. But that means if you want to attach it on, you're going to be pushing down on that. There's a tiny peg in there, and oopsies, you're going to snap it. And that's a very good. So that means you have to take this off, and then slide the foot under, tab it in, which is still tricky even with it off because there's a bit of give to the ankle joint. You can see there. And again, it kind of feels like I'm just stretching it. So what I do is I fully rotate in the ankle and then use that to kind of brace it so then I can push the peg into there. And then we'll do that same thing for the other side. So we'll just do that, rotate the ankle in, and then attach the peg there. It is a very, very tight fit. And then after this, you can just use ankle tilt. You can get him in whatever pose you want for his gliding. You can utilize the actual ankle rockers as well. And then here, and then it just kind of pegs into there. On the other side, it's always a bit scary kind of positioning it because it does, again, it kind of feels like you're going to break something. But once you do get it positioned, if I can cut the video real quick, you can get this, which is just an awesome display for really any Spider-Man collection because No Way Home kind of connected all of the live-action movies. Of course, it does work the best in a No Way Home collection, second best in a Raimi collection, and kind of wouldn't work the greatest in Amazing Spider-Man collection. Though then again, you just think of it as like a cope version of that Goblin. But yeah, this is just like amazing. I can't even fit this whole like display in frame. I can have to move it like that. That still doesn't work. My camera's about to fall off the table. And you can see the head sculpt. It just really adds to the whole look of him just flying around on his glider. And then you combine that with a pumpkin bomb as well, and it's just perfect. Now, if only we had an Aunt May figure for him to kill. And finally, for some quick size comparisons, here he is with another recently released Marvel Legends figure, that being the Infinity Saga Civil War Iron Man. A G.I. Joe Classified, the specific one being the new Firefly. A Voyager Transformer being Rise of the Beasts Optimus Prime, the Studio Series 1, and yes, I found this at retail at a Toys R Us. They only had one left, and I got it. This is my greatest life accomplishment, and it will be going on my gravestone. Here he is with a Core Class Transformer, that being Noah Diaz. The original Toy Biz Green Goblin figure. Migo Riddler, whose head is out of frame, there we go. McFarlane Aquaman, really hoping this movie ends up being good. And then for some Spider-Man size comparisons, here he is with Far From Home Spider-Man. No, I do not own the original No Way Home Spider-Man, just Far From Home one. Spider-Man, the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, who cannot stand at all. Another Spider-Man, and Spider-Man. So that's it for my review of this is a mouthful, Marvel Legends Spider-Man No Way Home Deluxe Green Goblin. An amazing figure, and it may be my Marvel Legends figure of the year. I don't know. I don't usually do best and worst lists, but I may this year if I feel like doing it. But it definitely is a really, really good figure. Is it worth the $70? Honestly, kinda. I'm really not sure because on the one hand, it is definitely more than like a normal, like deluxe Marvel Legends figure. But on the other hand, well, I mean, okay, it definitely feels like it's a bit more than a standard deluxe Marvel Legends figure usually costs like $50, right? Like your like Hulk figures. I think the upcoming Doc Ock. But would I say that it costs the same amount in terms of just the plastic density and what you get as like either two Marvel Legends figures or like a G.I. Joe Classified figure on a bike or even like the Trouble Bubble? I'm not sure, honestly. Like, that's essentially saying that this is of equal like parts count and value to this. And I mean, looking at the two, it could be, but then again, this is really thin, and this has more engineering for its articulation and everything. So I honestly don't know. It's really up to you. At least for me, just for that display alone of him like gliding around on his glider is just like easily worth that amount of money. But If you're not a really big Spider-Man fan, which let's be real, if you're not a Spider-Man fan, are you a superhero fan in general, or are you just don't like fun? So I think I'll say it is worth it, but definitely if you can find it on sale. I know like Black Friday is going on in the States right now, and for some reason there's a thing in Canada as well. It probably isn't on any of those deals, but if you wait like a year, then maybe. So I'd say it is pretty much worth that full price, but it would, as with any like action figure, better to get it on a sale, but it is still an amazing figure. Anyways, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, then don't. So, no, this guy cannot use a glider, sadly. The pegs, I mean, he has pegs in his feet, and I believe it could fit in there, but they're just not in the right placement. They're meant to be at the back of the foot in order to work with this. But that you can still just slide his feet into here, and that still does work. It's just not a really secure connection. So he can't really work with it, but you can kind of do it.